Okay, so hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muhammad Danial Kamal, and today I will be the moderator for today's session, and I warmly welcome you all. So, if we just recall कि आप लोगों को लास्ट वीक के अंदर क्या किया, आप लोगों ने नॉलेज को गेन किया था. So it we will be having just a small review regarding this. For the last week, you guys talked about the types of gender based violence, GBV की आपकी types आपने डिस्कस की थी, जिसके अंदर you discussed के आपकी सोसाइटी के कौन कौन से false beliefs हैं, कौन कौन सी myths हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल आप लोगों की हमारी जो एक सोसाइटी की myth है वो ये है कि हमारी सोसाइटी के अंदर ये कहा जाता है कि सिर्फ और सिर्फ जो लड़कियां होती हैं वो घरों के अंदर रहनी चाहिए, या उनको सिर्फ और सिर्फ घरों के काम करना आना चाहिए. एंड एक और जो हमारे पास मिथ है सोसाइटी की वो ये है कि लड़के जो हैं वो रोते नहीं हैं, एंड अगर तो वो रोए लें या अगर तो वो किसी भी बात पर हर्ट हो जाएं एंड वो रोना स्टार्ट कर दें तो और सोसाइटी यूजली सेज कि ये तो लड़के लड़के हैं एंड ये लड़कियों की तरह रो रहे हैं एंड एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा. और लास्टली आप लोगों को जो डिस्कस किया था आप लोगों ने लास्ट वीक विद मेहमाना एंड और लास्ट वीक स्पीकर. सो यू गाइस डिस्कस कि हमारे पास क्लाइमेट डिजास्टर्स की वजह से जो जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेंस बढ़ रहा है वो क्यों हो रहा है. And today, regarding this, that how gender-based violence is increasing within the perspective of climate change, we have our guest speaker. And today, I would like to warmly welcome Miss Amira Adil. And if I just introduce Miss Amira Adil to all of you. So she's a feminist, a climate activist, an educator, and a facilitator that is working, who is working at the intersection of climate justice, ecofeminism, and decolonial thought. And apart from this, Miss Amira has spoken at COP28, TED टॉक्स जो कि हमारे पास निस्ट के अंदर हुआ था, एंड बहुत से वेरियस प्लेटफॉर्म्स जो कि वर्ल्ड वाइड है हमारे पास. एंड शी रीचेज a wide audience to her content brand that is at the rate or earth, and she's currently based in Ubud, Bali, and she facilitates workshops and builds communities around regenerative futures and meaningful work. So over to you, Miss Amira. Thank you so much for joining today's session.
Thank you so much. Let me just share my slides. और ये सेशन जितना इंटरैक्टिव हो मेरे लिए उतना ही बेहतर है, तो आप लोग मुझे साथ साथ बताते जाएं. अगर कोई चीज़ आप लोगों ने डिस्कस करनी हो, कुछ पूछना हो, साथ साथ ही पूछ लें. And just let me know when you can see what I have. Okay, I think it's visible now. अच्छा, तो as far as I know, जैसे कि आपके होस्ट ने बताया कि आप लोग ने ऑलरेडी डिस्कशन कर ली है ऑन क्लाइमेट चेंज एंड जीपीवी इंडिविजुअली. तो अब उस चीज़ को कंबाइन किस तरह करना है और उनका कंपैरिजन और या व्हाट इज द लिंक बिटवीन देम वो डिस्कस करेंगे हम आज. सो व्हाट डू क्लाइमेट चेंज एंड जीबीवी हैव इन कॉमन? कोई कमेंट्स में मुझे बताना चाहेगा? कि क्लाइमेट चेंज और जीबीवी का जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेंस का क्या कनेक्शन है? कोई एक वर्ड में, दो वर्ड्स में, कुछ भी, लाइक एक सेंटेंस में, अगर आपके पास कोई थॉट्स हैं. एनीथिंग टू स्टार्ट दिस ऑफ? I hope you guys can chat. Is anybody typing? Should I wait? Or मुझे बस like कोई भी yes no answer ही दे दो, like just say no if you don't have any thoughts on how the two things connect. Just let me know. It allows patriarchal violence to go unnoticed. Isa says that without any accountability. Yes, climate change and GBV both allow patriarchal violence to go unnoticed. That is a structural deficit of the system. Displacement and migration are common. Yes, they are common. Lack of awareness about both things are common. Second. lost the chat. Yes, economic stress is common. Both can get neglected in large-scale discussions. Yes, absolutely. Yes, all of these things are common in GBV and climate change. Yes. Child marriage in both is common. That is very true. These are excellent points to start with. तो मेरा मकसद आज इस लेक्चर का ये है कि I'm going to go into the structural or systemic details of climate change and GBV and ask कि ये दोनों कौन सा ऐसा सिस्टम है जो कि इन दोनों को प्रोड्यूस कर रहा है और क्यों ये दोनों जो है persist करते हैं, क्यों exist करते हैं, or how they are linked to the same system and how the system keeps producing the same things again and again. So we're going to look at two examples. This is the first one. एक ये कि climate change is happening because हमारा जो economic system है वो endless growth पे focus करता है, infinite growth. मतलब कि all of you know कि हमारे एक linear economy model है where everybody is always focused on कि GDP को ऊपर करना है, अपने exports को ऊपर करना है, you have to get more money, and money is success. And so this infinite growth mentality is just not possible when your resources are not infinite. अगर आपके natural resources finite हैं, limited हैं, तो आपकी infinite growth possible नहीं है. So climate change is happening because our economic system focuses on infinite growth through extracting natural resources, right? And gender injustice होती है क्योंकि हम औरतों की bodies को and labor को extract करते हैं without compensating them. So the common link structurally, systematically between both things is extraction. And the second thing is externalization of the cost. ये दोनों थोड़े से like अगर complex words आप लोग को लग रहे ना डरो इनसे. This is just like the kind of terminology that is used in ecofeminism and academically in this field. So I'm going to explain everything to the minute detail. और कोई भी चीज़ नहीं समझ आती तो just type it in the chat and I will address it. So पहले हमने discuss किया कि extraction कि climate change में आपकी natural resources की extraction हो रही है, planet से extraction हो रही है. एंड जेंडर इनजस्टिस में औरतों की बॉडीज की एक्सट्रैक्शन हो रही है, चाहे वो उनका इमोशनल लेबर हो, फिजिकल लेबर हो या फिर रिप्रोडक्शन हो. तो व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट एक्सटर्नलाइजेशन ऑफ द कॉस्ट, फॉसिल फ्यूल कंपनीज क्या करती हैं कि जो क्लाइमेट चेंज की कॉस्ट है ना, जैसे कि अगर फ्लड्स आपको डील करने पड़ रही है या ड्राउट आपको डील करनी पड़ रही है, उसकी कॉस्ट फॉसिल फ्यूल कंपनीज को नहीं बेयर करनी पड़ रही, वो उस कॉस्ट को एक्सटर्नलाइज कर रहे हैं ऑन टू फ्रंटलाइन कम्युनिटीज, लाइक जैसे पाकिस्तान में सिंधी बलोची कम्युनिटीज दैट हैड टू डील विद द 2022 फ्लड्स, दे बोर द कॉस्ट of these emissions. Fossil fuel companies did not bear the cost. So fossil fuel companies ने उन cost को externalize कर दिया. And when we talk about women and gender-based violence, तो जो abusive partners होते हैं औरतों के, they externalize the cost of their psychological distress onto women's bodies. तो इसके लिए हमें समझने की ये जरूरत है कि जो partners abusive होते हैं उनको psychological distress होता है, as in that abuse stems from trauma that is unhealed. वो एक completely different कहानी भी है, kind of कि वो हमारा system किस तरह से वो trauma create करता है, especially in men. But basically abusive partners अपने psychological stress की cost खुद नहीं bear करे. वो खुद बैठ के नहीं सोच रहे कि मेरे में ये कमी है या मेरे में ये issue है तो मैं anger को इस तरह से deal करता हूँ तो मुझे इस तरह से deal करना चाहिए. They don't own the cost of that. They put the cost of that onto the women in their lives. So उन्होंने अपनी cost externalize की. So the two things that are systemically common in GBV and climate change is extraction and externalization of cost. So when we talk about extraction and externalization of cost, ये एक systemic चीज है. Just sorry, give me a second. And again, if you have any questions at all, just ask in the comments. Just let me, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the extraction and externalization of cost, ये जो दोनों चीजें हैं, they're not exclusive to climate change and GBV. Let me just check if any of you have commented over here. Okay, nahi. Because I'm not sure कि मुझे notification आएगी इसकी कि नहीं. But anyway, extraction and externalization of cost सिर्फ GBV और climate change तक limited नहीं है, वो एक systemic चीज़ है जो कि आपको दूसरी चीज़ों में भी नजर आती है. जैसे for example colonial debt, या फिर हम अपनी पाकिस्तान का जो national debt अगर उसको देखें, तो जो IMF type programs होते हैं या World Bank type programs और any financial institution या फिर even जो bilateral debt होता है, जैसे अगर China या US आपको debt देता है, इन प्रोग्राम से यूजुअली आपकी जो पॉलिसी क्रिएट करने की इंडिपेंडेंस होती है वो रिड्यूस हो जाती है, बिकॉज योर पॉलिसी इज देन इन्फ्लुएंस्ड बाय दीज प्रोग्राम्स और बाय दीज IMF टाइप इंस्टीट्यूशंस. आपकी प्राइवेटाइजेशन ज़्यादा हो जाती है ऑफ वाटर, हेल्थ एंड एजुकेशन एंड ऑल ऑफ दीज एसेंशियल थिंग्स दैट वी नीड इन आवर सोसाइटी, विच मीन्स कि जब प्राइवेटाइजेशन होती है तो आपके इंटरेस्ट शिफ्ट हो जाते हैं in actually focusing on health, education, and water to making money because you need to pay off that debt. And आपकी जो social cost होती है वो externalize हो जाती है poor लोगों पर. जैसे कि privatization अगर होती है, पानी अगर महंगा हो रहा है, drinking water for example to consume, या education में आपका disparity आ गई है कि कुछ लोग जो है metric FSC afford कर सकते हैं, कुछ लोग OA levels afford कर सकते हैं. तो the quality of education की जो कॉस्ट बेयर करनी पड़ती है वो एक्सटर्नलाइज किस पर होती है? पुअर लोगों पर होती है. सो it's not just GBV, it's not just climate change. You can also see this in the debt that we have in our countries. And you can also see it in the food systems that we have. जो हमारे food systems होते हैं, industrial agriculture जो होता है, या animal agriculture जो होता है, they extract soil के nutrients, water and animal bodies at unsustainable rates. वो unsustainable तरीकों से production कर रहे होते हैं that depletes the natural resources within the soil because they need to produce infinite growth, infinite amounts of food. It never ends because जितना ज़्यादा आप produce करोगे उतना ज़्यादा आप पैसे gain करोगे. So they externalize the costs of pollution, of antibiotic resistance, क्योंकि जब आप cows को antibiotics दे रहे होते to prevent disease or whatever, all of that is going back into the system, back into nature. All of the farmer debts, all of these things, they're externalizing this onto rural communities and future generations, क्योंकि ये problems सिर्फ compound होती रहेंगी, सिर्फ increase होती रहेंगी exponentially. And they are, industrial food systems are again using the concept of extraction and concept of externalization of cost. One more example of this is unpaid care work, which all of you must be familiar with जब आप लोग ने GBV के बारे में पढ़ा in your last lecture. The global economy जो हमारी है, it externalizes the cost of social work on women. जैसे कि बच्चे पालना हो गया, या बड़ों का ख्याल रखना हो गया, या फिर आपके घर की सफाई, कुकिंग, एवरीथिंग. इवन मर्दों के लाइक अपने हस्बैंड्स के इमोशनल लेबर संभालना, उनका इमोशनल स्ट्रेस संभालना. All of this is labor that is unpaid because there are jobs that exist that are paid in all of these areas. Yet when women are doing this as part of their family, as part of their lives, it goes unpaid, it's not compensated. So that is extraction of their labor, of their bodies. So all of these are examples of how extraction and externalization of costs are very common around us. It's not just in climate change and GBV, it's like a feature of the system of the world that we live in. So can you name this system in the comments? Can you name what this system is that revolves around extraction and externalization of cost? Capitalism, yes. Good. Aiza, you are on track. Capitalism is the system. Climate change and gender-based violence happen because the system is working exactly as it was designed to work. ये कोई aberrations नहीं है, ये कोई problems नहीं है system में, because the system, when a system is designed to extract and to externalize costs, so these are outcomes of that system. These are not problems within the system. This is what will happen anyway. So capitalism exists because we keep externalizing costs onto nature and onto women. But Also, I recognize that it's not enough to name the system. हम बहुत दफ़ा analyze कर लेते हैं, and reports में भी जो है like NGOs वगैरह and institutions and universities will go ahead and talk about this a lot. But the real question is, how do we fix it? And to fix it, we need to understand where does it come from and what is making it exist today. Even when we recognize it, what is stopping us from ending it? So capitalism needs patriarchy to function. So if the care work of women becomes paid, जैसे अगर आपकी mothers, आपकी sisters, anyone in your family who is being underpaid or unpaid right now, if they start taking money, if their work becomes paid, the entire profit model of capitalism collapses because it becomes impossible to afford those services. Oftentimes, जब पाकिस्तान से बाहर लोग जाते हैं, one of the key complaints that they usually have is कि सारा घर का काम खुद करना पड़ता है. क्यों खुद करना पड़ता है? Because the cost of labor is higher over there and work is paid better over there. So if you actually pay all the women in third world countries, global south countries, anywhere जैसे आपके even जो fast fashion की production होती है, that is severely underpaid, right? So Bangladeshi workers, Pakistani workers, Indian workers, they're all underpaid, whether in fast fashion, where the women are working or where male laborers are working in the Middle East, all of it is underpaid. And if we start valuing people and if we start paying people, the profit model collapses because the profit model is based on exploitation. So keeping women especially in submissive positions is actually a prerequisite for capitalism. कि अगर आपकी औरत submissive नहीं होगी, अगर आपकी औरत आपके लिए खाना नहीं बनाएगी, cleaning नहीं करेगी, you will not be able to achieve the things that you can achieve. And Maryam Mais का ये एक paper है, मतलब like she generally has this ideology, and this is where I got it from as well, so you can write down her name if you want to study more on this. So these are the systems or the issues that I am discussing over here. और मैं उसकी value chain भी discuss करना चाह रही थी कि कैसे जो है tear down होता है. So I see, this is like my personal opinion. So patriarchy is like the overarching system or the issue that we have, which creates the sense of dehumanization, power and suppression of femininity, because patriarchy values aggression, values power, values like, you know, maybe war, like assertion. So these are all very masculine values. So when you have that set of values, it allows the kind of thinking that one person is better than another. And then that kind of thinking leads to the dehumanization of the person who is not better, right? And so patriarchy allows for capitalism. It enables capitalism where we can extract from other humans, extract from nature, from animals, in a way that is not just, it's not fair. And then that leads to symptoms like climate crisis, like gender-based violence, like colonial debt, like animal agriculture, you name it. Like even like I would say the education system itself is very extractive. And so people who did not cause all of this, or did not cause climate change, did not cause gender-based violence or propagate it, they end up feeling the impacts of it, and they end up having to absorb the shocks of it. So we all know climate change ke baare mein, the poorest people are the ones that are absorbing the worst climate impacts, because Pakistan mein general narrative ये है ना कि हम producers नहीं हैं, हम emitters नहीं हैं, लेकिन हमें impacts feel होते हैं. So we are even Pakistan में, if you are, does someone have their mic open? I think someone has their mic open. I know I can hear like a lot of noise in the background. अगर किसी का mic खुला हुआ है, so please, can you turn it off? Yeah, okay, great. So back to it, कि जब हम पाकिस्तान की बात करते हैं, तो it's not like people like us who have access to air conditioners who are absorbing the worst climate impacts, right? It is always like people who are poor, people who do not have access to maybe like, you know, cars to get around, or air conditioners, or, you know, good nutritious food. It is the poor people who are absorbing the worst climate impacts, and they're absorbing it without compensation, because the global economy does not put a price on absorptive capacity. Again, this links back to the concept of externalization of cost, कि वो आप कर देते हो and you forget about it, right? So it's very similar to the concept of waste, if you think about it. कि हम एक चीज कंज्यूम करते हैं और उसको फेंक देते हैं, जैसे कि एक प्लास्टिक बैग हो जाए, कोई भी चीज हो जाए, say styrofoam, anything, and you throw it out into the world thinking that it's gone. But when you throw away waste, there is no such thing as away. दुनिया गोल है, कहीं ना कहीं तो वो वेस्ट जाएगा और किसी ना किसी को वो कॉस्ट बेयर करनी पड़ेगी. So even when we throw away waste, we externalize the cost of using that product and throwing it away. And there are other ways to do it. We know that there are other ways to do it. We know that there are other ways to create biodegradable products. We know that there are ways to be more sustainable and be more circular in our consumption. लेकिन हम नहीं करते. So just got your mic open. Can you please close? Like, it's really distracting. I forget what I'm about to say. Lare, I think this is your mic. Okay, I cannot do it myself, so I'll just like ask the organizers if they can just mute Lare, please. I don't know about you guys, but like I can hear it really loudly. I'm just gonna lower the volume over here. Lare, tomorrow, can you please mute your mic? Lare,
नाश्ता यार गंदा है भाई
Lare,
खादा तो क्या तो खा भले
Lare.
हाँ
Can the organizers help
नहीं
out?
यार ये आवाज तो નથી వచ్చే આપીને में
Is anyone there? Thank you. Okay, I'm so sorry about that, guys. I just get really distracted, and then I can't remember what I was. Oh my God, Lare, turn off your mic. Turn off your mic, please. Please turn off your mic. It's really loud for me.
I'm so
Thank
sorry,
you so
ma'am.
much.
It's just like we are trying to unmute, but it's somehow a glitch at her side. So उनका
Yeah,
mic
I think
open हो
so
गया.
too. Yeah. No worries at all. So let's continue. So it's always the poorest people who are absorbing the worst climate impacts because आपने वो cost externalize कर दिए. Lare was saying she can't hear anything. That's why she's turning on her mic. Oh, Lare, do you mind like leaving the call and then rejoining? Maybe that'll fix it for you. And just text in the chat. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Lare. Okay, so think of like an uncut tree. Like जब आपका दरख्त कहीं भी लगा होता है, उसकी monetary value को consider नहीं किया जाता, even though it has a lot of social value. This tree is worthless to capitalism. And hence, you know, it does not have any monetary value, and hence it's worthless to capitalism. So it's okay to cut it down. And I would like you to think of care work in the same way, and also poor people in the same way. Because these are people, including women, we are people that are useless to capitalism. जब आपके, especially when someone is so poor that they cannot contribute to capitalism properly, they become useless to capitalism and they cannot like actively participate in it. So what happens to these people, right? Then they are open to exploitation from capitalism. So women within these communities also absorb like unprecedented shocks of climate change because I'm all distracted now. Let me try to get back in track. Anyway, let's move on and maybe I'll find my groove. Acha. Have you noticed something called scarcity mindset? And I'll take a step back and let you guys chat in the chat box a little bit to see if you have any thoughts and if you've noticed something called a scarcity mindset. And I'm going to read your comments in the meantime. Financial insecurity imposes scarcity mindset. Absolutely, Sarah, that's absolutely right. But I would also like you to think about what causes financial insecurity. The thought of never having enough. Yes, exactly. And something generates that thought of never having enough. Like it's a manufactured thing, right? Animals never think about the thought of never having enough. They just live. Scarcity mindset means that you're not good enough to get a good life, and man, absolutely. But men also have like the same concept, right? Scarcity mindset affects all of us so intensely, and this stems from the very beginning, especially in economically competitive environments, जैसे पाकिस्तान जैसा मुल्क है, जहाँ आपकी एक manufactured scarcity है, where you have this competition with other people, right? So बचपन से आपके parents आपको कहते हैं कि you need to get good grades, you need to get the best job, you need to be either a doctor or engineer, have a safe job, have this, have that, because they are scared that you're going to end up homeless or you're not going to end up with enough resources to maintain your life. And yes, constantly comparing yourself to others. And so आपका बचपन से ही एक trauma generate हो जाता है, where you have this scarcity mindset that makes you think that अगर दूसरा बंदा कोई चीज achieve कर ले, that means that you will not achieve that thing because there's not enough space on the table for all of you. But that's not true. It's all manufactured. And I'll explain how. So capitalism, like I said, requires infinite growth, right? कि आपकी infinite level पे growth होती रहेगी, endless growth होती रहेगी. But इस infinite growth को maintain करने के लिए, they also need infinite demand, right? They need people to constantly need these things. And this requires people to always feel like they don't have enough. So whether that be through marketing, through advertising, or whatever. But here's what's interesting, guys. Have any of you read this paper by Dr. Jason Hickel, or have you heard of Dr. Jason Hickel? Dr. Jason Hickel has this research that came out in 2024, where he found that you only need 30% of the current resource production. Now listen carefully, you only need 30% of the current resource production in the world to provide decent living standards for 8 billion people. तो मतलब हम 70% production इस वक्त excess में कर रहे हैं. This is Dr. Jason Hickel. I don't know if I have it आगे on the slides. Dr. Jason Hickel का 2024 में paper निकला था, and I would recommend that you check it out because this opens the floor to immense possibilities and it affirms the manufactured scarcity mindset कि जो infinite growth हम कर रहे हैं, and this mindset that we have, it is producing 70% excess of global resources, and yet these resources aren't reaching people because एक तो capital accumulation है, right? So capitalism means that, you know, कि आपके पास एक hierarchy की तरह maintain होता रहेगा, and जो resources produce हो रहे हैं वो सिर्फ upper class को मिलते जाएंगे, and the lower class is going to keep getting less and less and less. Because there's no flow, there's no circularity. But the scarcity mindset, it comes from competitive individualism, जो कि बचपन में आपके अंदर instill किया जाता है. It comes from meritocracy and zero-sum thinking. And this mindset कि अगर मैं जीतूंगा तो तुम हारोगे, या अगर तुम जीत जाओगे तो मैं हार जाऊंगा. And so you work harder to win. Or if you have more, then I have less. Because apparently, like, सिर्फ आपके पास, you know, let's say 10 resources हैं, तो वो 10 में से अगर कोई ले लेगा तो आपके लिए कम like 5 ले लेगा तो आपके लिए सिर्फ 5 बच जाएंगे. This kind of thinking, right? But turns out that we have excess resources and we're just not distributing them equally. We all knew that they're not being distributed equally, but in so much excess, we didn't know that. So when you have a scarcity mindset, it prevents trust and solidarity among people. And that political outcome leads to, polarization, right? It leads to a polarized society, and it leads to political leaders being able to, autocratic leaders being able to separate you and pit you against each other instead of questioning the system exists kyun karta hai? Why are we in competition with each other when we have the resources and we have the means of production and we have everything? Why does this exist? And Krishna says that resources are stored to be sold at a greater price when they will be scarce. Sure, but what about resources like education? What about resources like healthcare? What about resources like, something that's very perishable, like bread, for example? So a lot of things that you can store, yes, but there's also a lot of things that you can't store, and they're just going to waste. And you can see that very, very vividly if you go to any superstore in a country that is not Pakistan. Pakistan mein food waste bahut kam hai. And the reason that we say that bahut zyada hai is because most of our food waste is because of a lack of cold storage facilities. So the food waste, Pakistan ka 40% food waste, 40% of food gets wasted in Pakistan wala stat hai, that actually comes from the farm or table ke beech mein jo space hoti hai where the food has to be transported. There is no cold storage facilities in Pakistan. So the food goes bad and that food gets wasted. It does not get wasted at our tables that much as it gets wasted in the West. In the West, aapka food, if you're buying an apple and the apple has like one mark on it, wo apple gets thrown out. You can see pictures of this online as well. Like the stores have actual policies कि उन्होंने homeless को the food that's about to go bad, they're not going to go give it to the homeless. They're just going to throw it out because उनकी brand को फर्क पड़ता है. So they have these weird systemic policies that encourage food waste instead of preventing it. Pakistan, in that sense, I feel like is very ahead in like sharing its food resources. But Pakistan has a distribution problem and a storage problem. But anyway, this whole concept, it prevents us from trusting each other. And when we don't trust each other, we cannot build towards something that is helpful to us, like a new system, for example. So capitalism is actually, is also causing manufactured resource scarcity. And manufactured resource scarcity intensifies gender-based violence. And what do I mean by this? Let's take the example of water scarcity, right? हम सुनते आए हैं कि पाकिस्तान में water scarcity है, इस्लामाबाद में पानी खत्म होने वाला है, blah, blah, blah. And that is really weird because the river Indus is fed by the third pole. So, you have the North Pole, which has a lot of glaciers, the South Pole, which has a lot of glaciers, and the third largest store of glaciers is above Pakistan, the third pole, the Himalayas. So it is impossible कि आपके पास global warming हो रही है, and instead of more water flowing because of melting glaciers, you have less water flowing. Like that does not make scientific sense. So the water scarcity issue is actually manufactured because of bad governance, bad policies, and a bad agricultural system, or because hamara irrigation system was made during colonial times, and that irrigation system, that whole infrastructure, it is designed not for feeding people, it is designed for export agriculture. And export agriculture us zamane mein, like colonial era mein, where it was meant to just send the food out, out of the country. And this whole system was continued under our bad governance of the last 75, 76, however many years it's been, because it's all focused on money. It is not focused on people. It is not focused on preserving the agricultural system. It is not focused on anything that is focused on well-being of the planet or people. It is focused on GDP. और GDP पे जब focus आ जाता है, you forget which pesticides are good for people and the soil. You forget which fertilizer should be used, should not be used. You forget everything. You forget which seeds are good for the planet and for the people and which are more nutritious. Everything becomes about production. Or production kar karke, you destroy the top layer of soil, which eventually makes your agriculture more susceptible to climate change, because the soil is not nutritious enough, it's not strong enough anymore to sustain our continued export agricultural methods. Another example is कि जब आप पानी की scarcity की बात कर रहे हैं हम, तो औरतें बहुत सारी across Pakistan, they sometimes collect our water for up to 6 hours a day. And they do this because हमारा जो पानी का system है, it's not focused on providing water to people. It can provide water to people. And very interestingly, actually, you need to read Dr. Hassan Abbas ka dam equivalence wala article. So Dr. Hassan Abbas is a hydrologist from Pakistan, and a lot of people don't like him because he talks facts. And he has given this whole framework financially, उन्होंने जो है maths करके दी हुई है उस article में कि किस तरह से हम सिंध का और कराची का पानी बेहतर कर सकते हैं, किस तरह से हम rivers में पानी दोबारा flow करवा सकते हैं, पानी किस like क्या कहते हैं aquifers को ज़्यादा restore कर सकते हैं. And you guys must have heard the thing about जब बारिश नहीं हो रही होती है, जब वाटर स्केर्सिटी होती है, गर्मी होती है ज़्यादा, तो वो कह रहे होते हैं ना कि हमारे पास सिर्फ 3 महीने का पानी रह गया, या we only have capacity to store water for 3 months. Like पूरे हमारे डैम्स में 3 महीने की सिर्फ कैपेसिटी है, 3 हफ्ते की सिर्फ स्टोरेज कैपेसिटी है. Sure, you know, डैम्स में आपके पास 3 हफ्ते की या 3 दिन की या whatever, जो भी वो नंबर यूज करते हैं होगी. You have a river running through the middle of your country. How is that river not refreshing the aquifers under it? So according to his calculations, we have 1,000 days of water storage capacity, which is constantly being replenished by the river Indus, right? And so if we were to create channels that actually supplied water to the cities nearby to the river, we would not have water scarcity. And if we actually took care of our rivers, we might not have water scarcity and might even turn our cities into something like really cool, like Seoul or like Venice. I don't really want to give like Western examples, but like, और क्या करे बन कोई Eastern examples अच्छी मिले तो मैं दूं. Anyway. So women who are collecting water for up to 6 hours a day, they do this because आपकी resources की management नहीं हो रही, because of this manufactured resource, what did I call it? Manufactured resource scarcity. So this scarcity enables control over women, right? So अगर एक औरत अपने दिन से 6 घंटे निकाल के सिर्फ पानी ढूंढने जा रही है कहीं, या पानी रिट्रीव करने जा रही है, उसकी energy consume हो रही है, उसका time consume हो रहा है, and she is more susceptible to then be controlled because she has very little time to even think about her system, her household mechanisms. You know, like any injustice against her, she is just going to do what she is supposed to do and then not deal with anything else because she does not have the energy or the time to do that. Next, so climate change does not cause gender-based violence, but it intensifies patterns that already exist in society, right? So climate change is not something जो कि externally problems create कर रहा है. वो सिर्फ आपके पास जो existing problems जो भी होंगे, चाहे वो water scarcity के हों, चाहे वो agriculture के हों, चाहे वो GBV के हों, any existing pattern is just going to get intensified, and that's the entire point of it being a threat multiplier. It multiplies the threats that you already have. So very simple example, like if a man is stressed, like a husband is stressed, he's using his unhealed emotional response as anger, and that anger is being transferred to the woman, and the woman is absorbing the shock of that man. Okay? Now, we look at the existing pattern. The man is stressed, he's responding with anger, and the woman is absorbing his anger. That's a pattern that already exists in our society. So when the man's stress increases, what do you think is going to happen? The woman will have to absorb more shocks, right? And another example, कि जब water sources deplete हो जाते हैं, तो the woman must travel farther away for water, and that reduces the woman's time and agency over herself. So the problem is in the existing pattern, but we tend to fix the symptoms, because fixing a symptom like the woman absorbing shocks, तो आप उसको ज़्यादा adaptive capacity दे दो, ठीक है, उसको ज़्यादा adaptation की तरफ ले जाओ कि किस तरह से इस woman को जो है हम ज़्यादा time या ज़्यादा skills या ज़्यादा resources दे दें, या फिर इस woman को जो है हम किस तरह से ज़्यादा बेहतर जो है water retrieve करने के methods दे दें. You're not fixing the pattern, you're fixing the symptoms. You're not asking why the water sources are getting depleted. Why does this pattern exist? Why is the man stressed, and why is he using anger as an emotional response? We're not fixing the patterns. We are only tending to the symptoms. So climate change was never the main issue. It's just highlighting the gaps that already exist in our society. It's a threat multiplier. And so these are like 3 examples. Like, women are more likely to be in agriculture and water collection, especially in Pakistan. और ये areas जो agriculture और water collection के होते हैं, they are more susceptible to climate shocks. मतलब जैसे पानी अगर खत्म हो रहा है तो उनको और ज़्यादा travel करना पड़ रहा है. अगर agriculture खाना सही तरह से grow नहीं हो रहा, nutrient provision नहीं हो रही, अगर women कोई farmer है उसके जो है yield से नहीं आई, she could also lose her land. Women are also more likely to have nutritional deficiencies, especially in South Asia. They also might have lower access to healthcare because ghar se nahi nikalna. And they also have to deal with pregnancy. And all of these things, they amplify the shocks that anyone is going to feel. So if a man and a woman are experiencing the same shock, the woman is likely to experience it more because of these things. And women also have low access to early warning systems, because often like the woman is the one who is tending to the house. She's not dealing with the bills. She's not dealing with the outside world as much. So she doesn't know systems kya in place hai, like what does the community have, like who to talk to for what. DC kaun hai, examples like stuff like that. They also have less finances, they're less likely to own land, they're less likely to have mobility, they're less likely to have social networks. And these are the resources that you need for adapting to climate change. So when resources become scarce, control over women's bodies and labor intensifies. ये एक community coping strategy है जो research में शो भी हुई भी है कि जब resources आपकी resource scarcity आ जाती है, manufactured resource scarcity, तो women are more likely to be subdued, they are more likely to be controlled. Some examples of that, एक तो हमने पहले discuss कर ली about how कि जब एक औरत water collect करने जा रही है तो उसका time reduce हो रहा है and she has less time and energy to do other things. But another example is monsoon brides, ठीक है. जब आपके पास मानसून हो जाती है 2022 फ्लड्स के बाद मानसून ब्राइड्स का कॉन्सेप्ट बहुत हमें सुनाई दिया था. This is about parents, about communities wanting to get rid of the extra weight of the extra mouths to feed, right? And monsoon brides का तो खैर ये भी concept था कि like there's some cultural significance that I forgot about, but it's about early marriages, and the core concept is that बेटी की शादी करा दी, so like maybe कोई आसानी आ जाएगी. Gender-based violence is a response to like male stress in the household, and the Taliban are like an interesting case study over here. Afghanistan generally is in terms of women. You can see that this is not just about climate change, right? Resource scarcity can also happen because of other things like the US, because the US has been the major cause of resource scarcity in a lot of countries. So when war happens, resources can become scarce, and that is also a manufactured resource scarcity, and that can also lead to control over women's bodies as we move towards more conservatism as well. And you can see the state of Afghanistan and what women go through over there. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the impacts and how like the connection between climate change and GBV works, as in kis tarah se wo show up hota hai. So we know that and this is like all research that I am kind of summarizing. I'm not really sure कि कौन सा कहाँ से at this point, but anyway, intimate partner violence, it increases जब households में जब आपका इनकम स्ट्रेस होता है या किसी किस्म का भी स्ट्रेस होता है कि आपके पास खाना पानी या पैसा नहीं है, तो that increases the violence against women through their partners. So this manufactured scarcity intensifies the male control over household resources and over women's mobility. Camps and emergency shelters, जब किसी भी औरत को किसी कैंप या इमरजेंसी शेल्टर में मूव करना पड़ता है, तो जो भी social structures that were preventing gender-based violence, for example, like, you know, आपके neighbors देख रहे हैं या सुन रहे हैं, या फिर आपकी extended family आपके पास है, या आपके पास चार दीवारी में थोड़ी सी privacy या security है, that all gets removed in camps and emergency shelters. And if this is something that is common in society, GBV I mean, that is an opportunity for gender-based violence to arise, and also an opportunity for people to exploit women for sexual favors in return for some resources. Then heat waves, water scarcity, and crop failure, all of this means more unpaid care work for women. Because जब कोई बीमार होता है, जब किसी को ज़्यादा जब पानी कलेक्ट करने दूर जाना होता है, जब खाना बनाना होता है और मैनेज करना होता है households, तो all of that falls to women at the end of the day. So there's also like this concept of this is all intentional, not in a sense of like a conspiracy theory, but in the sense of जब आप climate change को एक technical aspect पे रखते हो, तो उससे आप पैसे कमाते रहोगे, and you don't have to hurt the concept of capitalism or the system of capitalism or challenge the idea of capitalism to deal with climate change. So a perfect example of that is the concept of carbon credits, and why Pakistan is so keen on like dealing with carbon credits, because you do not have to you do not have to challenge the concept of the whole money facade that we have in our society. पैसे कमाने हैं, carbon credit से कमाओ. And जब आप gender-based violence को एक social और या cultural issue के तौर पे restrain कर देते हो, तो ये दोनों fields बहुत separate हो जाती हैं. Climate is all technical and gender-based violence is very like cultural. So they don't intersect. And intersectionality is the most important thing that you can learn if you want to change this future, if you want to change the system, because keeping people separate in silos, all of you have heard the term jack of all trades is master of none, and that's like half of the actual phrase. The actual phrase is a jack of all trades, master of none is better than being a master of one, because it's better that you know a lot about a little about a lot of things than a lot about one thing. उससे किसको क्या फायदा हो रहा है? You're in a silo and you can't fix the problem, what the problem is, because real world problems are always intersectional. वो कभी भी एक चीज से रिलेटेड नहीं होती. GBV आप सिर्फ फेमिनिस्ट होकर नहीं सॉल्व कर सकते. एनवायरमेंटल इश्यूज आप कभी भी चाहे सिर्फ क्लाइमेट साइंटिस्ट होकर नहीं सॉल्व कर सकते. You need communications, you need media, you need politics, you need so many different fields to come together to actually solve a real world issue. And so intersectionality is the single most important thing for anyone who wants to change the world. So climate policy, this is intentional, I feel, because so that climate policy can be focused on green technology, green transition, and it doesn't disturb capitalism. And gender-based violence ki policies can remain focused on finding perpetrators and survivors ko jo hai aap services provide karo, and they never ask कि ये gender-based violence के rates इतने high क्यों हैं in this system and in certain economic conditions. So both of these fields end up solving the symptoms rather than restructuring the system. Okay. So climate change is what capitalism does to the planet, and gender-based violence is what patriarchy does to women. And both of them have the same underlying logic that some bodies and some areas or places are there to be used and consumed and thrown away. That is the entire logic of both of these issues. Do I have anything next? No. Okay, I'm done. Okay. So that's it for the lecture. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And to all the fellows, if you have any questions from Ms. Amira Azid, please ask a lot of questions from her. She has a great exposure and she has a lot of knowledge on GBV and climate change. You can write your questions in the chat box, or you can just raise your hand and feel free to ask any question.
I'm sure it'll take time for everyone to type. But yes, Aiza.
So, thank you so much for this amazing session. I follow your work a lot and I could see everything sort of being represented in this lecture. So thank you for that. I have a lot of questions that could be sort of a follow-up to the lecture that you just gave in terms of if you want to talk about solutions and whether or not those solutions are reaching the people जिनको हम address करें जो ये problems actually bear कर रहे हैं. So if we talk about communities that are bearing the brunt of it, I feel like we live in a lot of we live in this position of privilege कि हम इसके बारे में बहुत easily बात कर रहे हैं, but in a typical Desi household, you have maids coming in from the villages to come, and whenever they talk about their lifestyle, I'm shocked at the kind of lifestyle that they have to live, because their gender-based violence is something that's so common that they can even laugh about it. And I don't understand that no matter how many research papers I read or lectures I listen to, I don't ever feel like that our solutions or our communication is ever reaching out to those people, because even if you try to help them, they're also living in their own system. It's easy to use words like capitalism, and I know it's very important to name them, but they have a jirga, for example, so usne decide kar liya, now we can't do anything, and that goes back to a certain MNA jo ke us region ko lead kar raha hai. So you can't really fight with them. And it sort of makes you kind of hopeless, but also it makes you feel more responsible कि जब problem इतना ज़्यादा deep है, तो you need to find solutions there. Sorry, it's a long question, but I think given the context that we're living in, I feel like I don't feel like gaining more knowledge, because I feel like everything is just so messed up that I don't see a solution to it. When we talk about landfills, I don't see any end to it, because we don't really know the realities of it. And even as women, even just a middle class woman, I don't think they know much about agency, about they have too much of internalized misogyny to sort of have the agency to make change. And these are problems that I feel like are so embedded in our society that it's very difficult to deal with them. And given the economic crisis that we're facing, we are being forced into this competition. Hame behtar karna hai. And if you say something like, oh, money doesn't matter, they'll laugh at you, because obviously everyone's striving to survive at this point. And I don't know how much we're wasting our time in communicating, because हर चीज मुझे लग रहा है बोलना ज़्यादा आसान हो गया आजकल, and I don't know how solutions can reach the right people. That's sort of the question. I don't know if it makes sense, but I would love to hear your thoughts about that too. Yeah.
No, it absolutely makes sense. That was my entire thought process when I was going through my entire journey as well. कि आप करते रहते हो और बस problems increase होती रहती हैं, आपकी knowledge increase होती रहती है, and the hopelessness keeps increasing. And the only reason that I don't feel hopeless right now is because ek to main, I hate to say it, but like I had to leave Pakistan because my husband lives in Indonesia, so I moved here to be with him. For starters, and being in an environment that is not constantly pulling you down has allowed me to see everything that is possible in the world right now. And I hate that because I wish that I had seen that in Pakistan. It would be easy for me to apply that. So here's what I see as the solution, right? आपका मसला सारा ये है कि the society, all the society, the whole world is focused on money. But why are we focused on money? Because we have associated money with survival. ठीक है, आपका खाना पीना shelter सब कुछ है money से आता है. So obviously the best thing anyone can do is earn more money, because that is how you provide to your family. And so that becomes this symbol of like achievement के अगर आप पैसे कमा रहे हो तो आप achieve कर रहे हो. But at the same time, when a woman is providing, or like even when a man is providing for his family in other ways, in care work, in staying up all night and feeding a baby or whatever, that is not recognized in the same like level of value, because our money is what defines survival, right? आप इन चीजों को measure नहीं कर रहे. So then the obvious answer to me at least becomes that we have to separate ourselves with the concept of money and separate our worth with the concept of money, and go back to the basics of what does it mean to be a human being? What does it mean to not hurt the environment and other people? What does it mean to be with other people? And there are people who are doing this. So if you're interested in this sort of thing, I'm going to type down Post Growth Institute. एक तो इसको check out करो, and then look at degrowth, the concept of degrowth, especially by Dr. Jason Hickel. And the whole idea is that we need to rethink our mindset of like infinite growth. I feel like that's very dumb, and that goes back to the jack of all trades that I talked about, because economists often tend to think around their own bubble and they think they know everything, but they don't know anything. So what I'm trying to say is the solution is in us living as communities, right? So growing our own food, having our own agency, being able to decide for ourselves what kind of life we want to live, while also not hurting anyone else. Hurt. Oh, I reconnected. Sorry, you guys. I lost my connection for a little bit. So yeah, anyone who's interested in getting out of that hopelessness, look into the concept of degrowth and the Post-Growth Institute. There is a preventing you from seeing it. And
Guys, you have to bear with us. I guess we have a problem over Miss Amira's mic. उनके पास maybe problem हो internet connection की. So just we have to wait. Sure, Miss Kisa. We'll be sharing Miss Amira's Instagram ID. Don't worry. अच्छा, so in the meanwhile Miss Amira is coming. I guess कि हमें थोड़ा सा डिस्कस कर लेना चाहिए. Well, there was a report of UNICEF, and जिसके अंदर उनकी जो रिपोर्ट का नाम है, you can also check it out. It's like they have a policy brief on gender that is named as climate crisis and gender-based violence, intersecting risks and integrated solutions. So this is the whole name of the report. उनकी policy brief series का.
Hi, I'm back.
And you guys also
I'm
can
so
check it out.
sorry.
Hello, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to the internet. It disconnected to 4G. And yes, any other questions?
Ma'am, I'll be having one question, but I'll be asking in the end. I guess कि सारे पहले पूछ लें, and then I can ask, because I know कि you were a voice at COP28.
Sure, anytime. किसी और का कोई question है, बस like mic unmute करके ही पूछ लो. I think at this point I've lost all the chat because I disconnected. Anyone
I
else
guess
have any questions?
there are no questions in the chat box.
Okay.
And guys, just for a fun fact, Miss Amira Adil was one of the very first organizers for the LCOI Pakistan. I was inspired by her when she organized LCOI Pakistan. I was just there as the very first participant. So, ma'am, I'm just following you from that time, that era, and I'm just recalling the memories of LCOI Pakistan.
Thank you. And thank you, Manur. I think someone else left some really nice messages as well in the chat, and I wasn't able to look at them properly or respond. So thank you for that. Thank you all for listening.
So, ma'am, I'll be having one question. जिस तरीके से in the COPs we are discussing about indigenous populations. My question is, we are having COP31 is just round at the corner. So, are we going to talk about GBV and climate change in terms of the context of women? हमारे पास उसके अलावा क्या indigenous population के अंदर भी हम लोग इसके ऊपर बात कर सकते हैं? क्योंकि COP30 के अंदर indigenous populations के ऊपर बहुत ज़्यादा आपके ने बात की गई थी, and they were very in terms of the negotiations process. So I just wanted to know about this term.
So when I went to COP28, that was actually a reason that I left my job and my entire life after that. Because COP28, I realized, so उस वक्त Palestine का issue बहुत नया शुरू हुआ था, and there was this UAE का जो silo था या country platform जो भी होता है, I forgot what they're called. UAE का एक side पे था, and like right across the road on the other side, like maybe hardly 10 meters का difference पे, there was a protest happening for Palestine, and there were literally activists that were crying and just hugging each other and crying and being sad and everything. And मैं जो बीच में खड़ी हुई थी, मैं UN women की तरफ से गई हुई थी, and they told me strictly not to participate in any protests because I was kind of representing them. So I saw like UAE के जो लोग थे, because वो दुबई में था, the UAE के लोग they were literally like standing there looking at the protesters, sipping coffee and then laughing with each other. And I was just like, what the hell is happening over here? And that's when I got radicalized, and I was like, I am not on the right track over here. I'm not on the right side of history over here. And I stopped following COPs after that. And if you want to follow like any kind of global deliberations, I would suggest the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Conference, जिसका first chapter अभी Colombia में हुआ है. So that would be a much better platform to expect anything to happen, because COPs are generally just a place for the people who fund these problems to come and like kind of discuss their own, interests, rather than anything else. So even if like GBV की discussion होती है, even अगर indigenous लोगों की discussion होती है, I seriously doubt that it would ever go anywhere, because there was no need for 31 cops either. Like, first maybe decide, okay, like fossil fuels are the problem, right? And yes, their main sponsors are mostly big oil companies, and that's absolutely ridiculous.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, guys, if you have any question regarding COPs or regarding today's topic, you can ask Miss Amira. She is here with all of us. वैसे मैं ही कहूँगा कि मिस अमीरा से जितना नॉलेज आप लोग कभी ले सकते हो आप ले लो, ये मौके बार बार नहीं आते, तो इसलिए जरूर लो नॉलेज.
Or anytime, you guys can just like reach out to my Instagram as well, Aiza.
I'm really sorry for asking so many questions, but since no one has any, so I think I can use the time. I have two questions to thodi se separate them, but since your topic was so broad, I think it brings in a lot of questions. So first one is about if you live in a patriarchal society the way we do, it's very difficult if you bring up these topics in your household. And by household, I mean generally like families mein, doston mein, and in like general settings. I think the idea agar aap kisi ko jaake bolte hain that women's unpaid care, I think that throw the first argument ke we earn for you, we go out and we work hard. And I don't want to fight that idea because I see it happening. I understand that you do work hard, you know, but then again, I want those people to recognize that it's the system that's dehumanizing you as well to a point कि आपकी कोई dignity नहीं है. Like I remember जब वो दुबई जाने का craze बढ़ा था, so all the men would brag about the fact कि हम एक apartment में रहते थे, single bed apartment में रहते थे, and we lived this life, and now they have wives who are thriving, I would say, because those men made it in their lives. So how do you sort of deal with that reality? Because whenever I have to have this conversation, I fail to make my point because I know in my head what I'm thinking. But जब आप किसी से बात करते हो तो कहते हैं हमने ये reality जी ली है, you know. How do you know about it? Because again, for most women, you do stay in the house, you do enjoy some kind of privileges. But at the same time, I don't think it should separate us from the conversations just because those people are a part of the problem that the system is perpetuating. So if you have to talk about these issues and mainstream them, how do you counter the retaliation that you face, especially with the rise of like this, not manosphere, I would say, but like hum to manosphere ke saath bachpan se rahe hain, right? So it's gotten a lot worse, I feel like, in the past few days, years. How do we deal with that? Because I do believe that in order to fight systems like this, we need many people on board, and it cannot just be women. It needs to be more people, because at the end of the day, it is affecting all of us. It's just one gender gets to, as you said, externalize the cost of the stress that they're facing. So yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple of ways to go about it. Just from my personal experience, not saying this is the way that people should go about it. So one way that I learned from my mom, because I've unfortunately radicalized her to the extent that she's now the angry woman of the family. And जब भी कोई uncle कोई remark pass कर देते हैं or something, so she just asks them, you know, are you gonna do that? Like if someone says ना कि ओ इसकी रोटियां अच्छी नहीं है, so she goes and says, नहीं तो आपने कभी बनाई है या आप बना लेना, आप क्यों नहीं बनाते? So you know, she just like challenges them like that, and then they just like shut up. So that's one way. I feel like the most radical way to get men involved in the fight is to expose them to the realities of it. And this only happens, unfortunately, if they care about you. And so I think the best and the hardest thing to do is to get your fathers and brothers and sons involved. They're also the hardest to convince because it's a very emotional discussion with them. But you know, like if I'm going through this trauma, you deserve to know the trauma as well. Like, you know, you at least deserve to know the story about the trauma. And so I have traumatized my father a lot with my stories. But as a result, he is very radicalized now. He even invited Mehrab Moiz Awan to his department to give like a lecture on gender and security and pata nahi kya kya. And I was like so impressed by him. It's like, you never would have done that, like, you know, 5 years ago. So it's just about exposing them to the realities that we face as women and not watering it down for them or not using academic language for them, just being like very clear about, you know, okay, which of their friends, which of their colleagues, which of the people that they hang out with are harmful men and what they've done to us. Because like we all know men like that. Also, I'd say find allies instead of changing mindsets, find allies, and that's going to be easier as well. And when you just have like a bigger number of allies, as in when the minority is overpowered, like when those kind of people are overpowered, वो automatically अपना opinion shift कर देते हैं because this is not a value that they hold. So it's not like they believe in it. They just like have that opinion because it benefits them. Please repeat the name of the platform. If you're talking about mine, it's Or Earth, AUR.EAREARTH. But if you guys have any further questions, I'm happy to answer them on my Instagram. And I think there's no further questions over here. Are we good to go?
I guess, ma'am, आज का session इसी के साथ इख्तिताम करते हैं. So once again, ma'am, on behalf of the Buraaq Association, I would like to extend our deepest gratitude to you. And I guess there is one more hand raised, ma'am.
Yeah, go ahead, Iman.
Sorry, it was by mistake.
Oh, okay. It was a mistake.
So I extend my deepest gratitude to you, ma'am, for joining us today and sharing your insights on the critical intersections of GBV and climate change. And आपके सेशन ने ना सिर्फ रोशनी डाली है हमारे challenges के ऊपर जो कि हम लोग फेस कर रहे हैं as vulnerable communities, बल्कि मैं ये समझता हूँ कि इस सेशन ने इन तमाम पार्टिसिपेंट्स को और मुझे दोबारा से इंस्पायर किया है कि हम लोग क्रिटिकली इसको देखें कि किस तरीके से हम लोग एक्शनेबल सॉल्यूशंस के साथ और एडवोकेसी की इंपॉर्टेंस के साथ इस प्रॉब्लम को हल कर सकते हैं. So the knowledge, the passion and the experiences that you shared will undoubtedly guide our work and commitment towards moving forward. And thank you for taking the time to engage with us, for your thoughtful perspectives and for empowering us to continue addressing these urgent issues with sensitivity and resolve. और मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ कि मैम आज की जितने भी हम लोगों ने लेसन्स लिए हम इसको मजीद आगे लेके चलेंगे, लेकिन in future we look forward to collaborate with you for further opportunities.
Sure, anytime. And thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you for putting together this fellowship. And thank you everyone for listening. I love it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, इसी के साथ participants, inshallah, we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And tomorrow, Miss Amna will be here. So, you will be having another session with Miss Amna for tomorrow at the same time at 8. So, thank you so much for joining today's session. Good night, Shabba Khair, Khuda Hafiz.